Well, we're going to have a quick 15-minute conversation today just on technology and outages at Cullman Electric Co-op and the things that we're working on over the years to help provide a better service to our members. But before you know where we're going, you need to know where we've been. If you look at your screens up there, you'll see some pictures we're going to go through this morning. And here's where we were 30 years ago. Y'all may can imagine years ago going on road trips, you kept a map in your glove box. That told you how to get to where you had to go. We were a lot the same way. You see the green book at the bottom there? That was our map book. On the left was a handwritten note. And anytime we had a problem, a service order, an outage, this is how it got worked, through paper and people that knew where to go on the system or from reading that map book. A lot in the same way, years ago, we had metering. There was a lot of this same design. You can go to the next slide. So on your left there, you'll see an old meter book. Right above it is that book opened up. And you can imagine, y'all may remember the meter readers of years ago. We went to every meter at every home, took a meter reading, brought it back, and processed that information for billing. That transformed through the years to our metering system that we have today. On the right there is Josh Coretti, our GIS and metering specialist at the co-op. And what used to be a book for every member has turned into an operated computer system that has 46,000 accounts at our fingertips at any given time. So that meter data goes into reporting. And a lot of times we get questions about outages. Does the co-op care about outages? Are y'all looking at our outages? The answer is emphatically yes. Those numbers are hard to see right there, but that's a screenshot of this past July. We track outages every day, every minute, every customer. A term you're going to hear this morning is minutes out. To give you an idea of what that means, if 10 people were out for 10 minutes, that's 100 minutes out on the CEC system. If you were looking at that chart right there, around July 9th, we had a thunderstorm one evening. There was around 30 outages, around 1,800 members were affected, and it was about 230,000 minutes out. That's a typical thunderstorm on the CEC system. Outside of minutes, we also track causes. Every outage gets assigned a cause by our dispatch office. They track the outages, the lineman feeds them back information, and they make a history of our system of what these outages were. For example, on here you will see this is through August of 2022. You'll see about 300 times lightning took somebody out. Around 400 times a tree took somebody out, and 20 times a car hitting a pole took somebody out. That all goes into a monthly report that goes to every employee at CEC. This is a tracking graph that we put out every month that tracks our performance. Obviously, our goal is to get better every year. At the top there, you'll see 2022 against 2021 next to it, and right below that's our running average since 2009. We track these outages every month, and that helps build a report that tells us where action needs to be taken. But these are all steps that have been going on for several years. And many years ago, we started thinking, how can we be better? How can we go from reactive to proactive? How can we start attacking things before they happen and be better prepared when they do? One of the first things you see here that you'll hear a little bit more about in the next few slides is drones. That's not just any nondescript random picture. That picture behind that graph is actually the first time a drone found an outage on the CEC system. This is a three-phase line at Bremen that goes up the mountain on Highway 69, then turns right and feeds down Prospect Mountain to Arkadelphia and Colony. Many of you that may live in that area know that's been a very troubled spot this past year. That right-of-way for a long time was very inaccessible. If it was raining, sleeting, snowing, you're not going to get a truck in that right-of-way. But instead of having a guy ride that line and walk it for 1 or 2 hours, you can fly it in 5 or 10 minutes. Report that information back and tell that crew exactly where to go. You can go to the next slide. Another piece of technology that we've had for several years is our OMS system. This is a screenshot that may not look very impressive on face value, but what this system does is it tracks outages all across the Cullman EC system. As outages happen, members call in. That phone call is tied to their account. That account then shows up on this map. And through a predictive engine, it can report back what device it thinks that outage is on. You'll also see some other stuff on here. You've got our substations, our lines, all of our trucks, any cautions that may be on the system, a broke pole, a hold tag, a caution tag, a whole myriad of information that our dispatchers can use to help direct our men safely through an outage. And this is where things start to change. So you'll see here, this is also a map that looks very similar to our OMS map. The co-op was an early adopter in the early 2000s to electronic mapping systems. Around 2017, we had our first big upgrade of that system to what we have today. That system then fed us the ability to do this. Around 2019, the same guy you saw a while ago, Josh Coretti, he came to my office and said, hey, we've got some options we can use that we've never used. It was called heat mapping. And we're not talking about temperature. We're talking about data and occurrences. You may remember that meter data I just talked about a while ago. That meter data feeds us information on every account and then ties it to that account. We then have that account tied to GIS, geographic locations. What Josh was able to do was take that outage data and what would normally be thousands of lines of data gets put into a visual picture. You can see here we were talking about the Bremen-Arkadelphia area. The colors you're seeing represent counts. 1 outage, 2 outage, 3 outages, or 4 even. And every 3 to 6 months we can run these heat maps. This gives us a visual of where to go next and where to invest time to improve our system. As you all know, we don't want to keep our rates any higher than we have to. It's very hard to struggle with a growing system that you also need to maintain and make better. This tells us where to spend the money the most efficiently to make the best use of your funds. So we talked about drones. Drones have a big impact in many ways. They tell us very quickly where a problem may be. They also help us monitor work. If you've been out 222 lately, you may see all the new lines that are in the air from the Ryan Creek substation. Drones were used here to monitor that construction. From the air, you get a much quicker visual of if that line was constructed the way it should be, the way it needs to be, and also after the fact, you could imagine a 4-circuit pole like this is not a very cheap pole to replace. It's not an easy pole to replace. If a tornado came through here and wiped that out, we now have a visual of what that looked like and exactly how it should go back in a quick manner. There's that pole right there. That's probably one of the most loaded poles on the system. Now we get into the meat of the conversation today. I know I've only got 5 minutes, so this is going to be quick, but this next picture here is very important. Y'all heard Brian and Bonnie talking a few minutes ago about Sprout. Prior to Sprout ever being created or named, a lot of conversations were being had at the co-op about what can we do to make our members' lives better? What can we do to improve their service? What can we do to improve their quality of life? Fiber is many things. It's not just internet. It's also a communication system for the CEC electric system. Y'all heard for a couple of years now about the ring that was built. That ring connected all 17 CE substations and gave us a highway, if you will, of communication paths. Those paths then allow us to go downline to talk to devices. The picture you're seeing here was this past July when we proudly got our first downline device connected to the CEC system. This is Josh Nix, our system engineer. On the left side of that screen, you'll see a map. That's an imagery overlay of the Logan area where this breaker resides. On the right side is an interactive screen that can actually talk to and control that breaker in Logan from the CEC office. And in the middle is the live data stream coming back to us. Go to the next one. So that ring that we talked about, you saw this a while ago on Brian and Bonnie's slides. That ring is a highway, if you will, connecting all the other arterial roads, which are our power lines, to connect to downline devices. That then brings back very usable data that our dispatchers can utilize to get outages restored quicker. You can go to the next slide. So this is our dispatch office. You'll see that same picture in the background that you saw a while ago. There's a lot of information that can be gained from a breaker. Today we'll talk very quickly about fault current. Anytime a fault is on a line, it may be a car hitting a pole, a tree falling on the line, lightning striking, a squirrel getting on a transformer, that outage creates a fault. These SEL relays can read that fault, which our engineering office can then relay back to a distance. That distance can then be fed to this dispatcher to help tell that crew where to go and not have to do what you've always heard of, riding the lines. We know at the co-op we do not want to speed up what our linemen do. It's not safe. But we do want to speed up how fast they get there. That's the one thing we can do that doesn't impede their safety, but also gets your lights on quicker. Next slide. Outside of outages, which this was an outage, we also gained 24-hour surveillance. This was this past spring. That's a direct lightning strike on Hansville substation. You can imagine in the middle of the night, 2 in the morning, a substation goes out. You don't know why. I will tell you in my position, that is a very bad phone call to get. You don't know if you're about to have a week-long problem, an hour-long problem, or what you have. This video technology can tell us very quickly what happened. We can take our technicians, go to that substation, and go directly to where that strike happened. This, for instance, was a lightning strike. That flame, that ball of fire you see, lasted less than 0.2 seconds. But with good HD video, we're able to slow it down and see exactly where that strike hit and be able to get eyes on it to get it prepared. That was the next morning after that outage when the sun came up. We were very proud to get our guys out there, see what happened, and have the lights on before people had to get up and get ready for work. At the end of the day, that's the goal of all of this. Our trucks are sitting at the dock, and outage happens. We want to take our trucks, get them off the dock, get them into the field. Next slide. The quicker we can get them out of that dock and onto that location, the quicker your lights can get back on safely. And that's our goal. We want to get all of our guys home safe. We want your service to be as best as it can, and we can all enjoy a nice sunset at the end of the day. Thank you all for being members of Cullman Electric Co-op, and thank you for being here today.